All right, you guys, as you can see by the thumbnail, I'm back with another one like the other one, and I'm going to get straight into it because I want to try to get this out to you guys as well as the next Inner Demons, the next episode of Inner Demons. And I want to try to get these out tonight because tomorrow we're going to be running that raffle, and it's going to be a long day tomorrow. Just trust me on it. So for those of you that are not familiar with the raffle, I might put something out separately explaining the raffle, but let me just sum it up for you real quick so you guys understand. So for those of you that have never seen us run a raffle, it's $3 a ticket, $3 a buy-in. You can purchase as many tickets as you want. The way that we prefer you guys to purchase those tickets or those buy-ins is through either Cash App, which is Big Bank Takes Little Bank, or Venmo. And the Venmo is John Mendoza 50. And with regard to Cash App, if you guys use Cash App, be sure that the profile name is Junior Mendez, because there's other Cash App names out there that are familiar. So you don't want you sending it to the wrong Cash App. Now you can buy as many tickets as you want. Like I said, if you send in $12, that's obviously enough for 4 tickets. So you could buy as many as you want. We're doing 3 pairs of Jordans tomorrow. So we're trying to spice it up, amp it up so that, we can bless a couple of you, not just one like we've done in the past. We're going to be doing a lot towards the end of this year. We're going to try to get out some gift cards for Thanksgiving so that those of you that have fallen on hard times can maybe go out and buy some food for the family, especially if you guys got kids. And then we're going to do something for Christmas, specifically for Christmas, to where, hopefully if some of you guys are struggling around that time and you got kids and you can't really get nothing for the kids, hopefully we can do something to make it a little bit better for some of you. We can't help everybody, but we're going to try to bless some of you. You guys always look out for the channel, so this is our way of giving back. So again, those of you guys that want to get into the raffles, get in now. Tomorrow is the raffle, and you guys can get in all the way up until when we spin the wheel. We're doing 3 pairs of shoes. We're probably going to be giving out some shirts, some books, and some other stuff. So get in where you fit in. You might want to do that right now. 3 pairs of Jordans. Also, we're supposed to be doing a weight set as well. That is $5 a buy-in. And, if you guys are looking to get in on the weight pile, the weight set that we're trying to give away, it's a cable weight set that, you can do arms, shoulders, bench press. It's a cool little setup. It's just the cable weights, and I believe it's like 200 pounds worth of weight or something like that. There's plates on there. So anyways, if you guys want to get into that raffle, it's $5 a buy-in. You can buy as many tickets as you want. There's not that many people in this raffle because this one right here, obviously we can't ship out a weight set. It's too damn heavy. So the individual that owns it, that has it, that's donating it to the channel for the raffle, lives near the Stockton area. So if you're near the Stockton area and you can drive out there and pick it up, go ahead and get in that raffle. You're somebody that wants to get in shape, and you got somewhere in the garage where you can keep it. Make use of it. $5, get a whole weight pile, at least 200 pounds worth of weight. Anyways, let me get into this story. Now, this story right here is about the Grajedas. The Grajedas are somebody that I'm sure a lot of you guys that are familiar with the Mexican Mafia, a lot of the former members that are still current. These guys right here were relevant within the organization. They were deep into the politics, and this story right here is primarily about Wino. However, it also bleeds into when the Grajedas got voted out, and basically they all got put on the hard candy list. So you guys might want to check this one out. It's got a cool little twist to it. I got some bangers coming up for you guys. I hit the jackpot. We got stories coming out about Weddle Sherm. We got stories coming out about Bat. This is a whole bunch of different individuals. A lot of the guys that you guys have heard about, and a lot of you that have asked about these guys. And again, like I've been mentioning in the last couple of videos, if You guys have any stories that you want to share and you want to be compensated for your time and for sharing the stories, get at me on my email, boxerparadigm@gmail.com, and you can share those stories with me. You will remain anonymous. You're just going to relay the story to me. I'm going to put the story out there. All I want you to do is share it with me. And like I said, I will compensate you for your time and for sharing it with us. Time is a commodity. I know a lot of you are not in it for, financial gain and all that, but we all got to get gas. We all got to pay bills. So, this is just a way of looking out for you guys, just for giving us your time and obviously for sharing the stories. So this story right here is about Wino from La Rana and the Grajedas. And it's about, there's a bunch of twists and turns to this story, but, it's about the Grajedas, Wino, how he ended up picking up a life case and some other things. So it's a good story. So according to the source, who I'm now going to be referring to as Slick, Wino from La Rana was somebody that he not only knew, he respected, but Wino also, he taught him a lot. Whether they would be at the source's house, they'd be at Wino's house, sometimes sitting there drinking beer or shooting dope. That's what they were doing. Wino would use that time to lace him up and to instill some of the Mexican mafia's belief system within this guy. One of the things he said that Wino emphatically tried to explain to him was the difference between a member of the M and a carnal. Slick said he remembers going over to Wino's pad and they were sitting in the living room and Wino pulled out a big bag of crystal and he asked him, he's like, hey bro, can you get rid of this right here? Slick said he then asked Wino, he's like, hey, is it any good? I mean, I don't want no bunk shit. If I'm gonna put it out there in the street, I want some fire, bro. He's like, is it any good? And then he said, Wino looked at him and he said, well, there's only one way to find out. So now they're sitting there in Wino's kitchen shooting dope. They're testing it out, and you guys that have ever indulged in it or people that indulge in it, one hit is not enough. I mean, once you get that, and they were mainlining this shit. Once you get that first one in, you get that rush, bam, you want another one, bam. So they're in there, they're fixing back to back to back, and at some point, Slick gets up and he pukes in Wino's sink, in his kitchen sink. Hey, throws up in his sink. That right there is a violation. Well, it used to be, at least in Pelican Bay, because you don't spit in the sink, you spit in the toilet. You brush your teeth, you spit in the toilet. So anyway, so Slick, he ends up doing a monster shot. He pukes in the sink, right? He pukes in the sink, and Wino continues, he continues to talk about some of the things that he was trying to educate him on. So Wino, he starts going into the rules of, the Mexican mafia, his expectations, things that he expects from guys that are working under him out on the streets. And he's going over all the rules and regulations with Slick. And he basically tells Slick, he's like, look, bro, if you're going to be working with me, he's like, you need to know the rules and you can't break the rules. Straight up. That was one of Wino's things. He was like, you can't not break the rules. He explains to Slick, he's like, look, bro, we're super cool. He's like, you're my boy. I got a lot of love for you. My wife, she loves you. My kids love you. But if you break the rules, if you fuck up, I'm not going to hesitate to whack you straight up. And Slick already knew how Wino was. So he was okay with that. Slick was like, he wasn't really worried about it because as far as Slick, according to him, he was like, you know what? I knew that I wasn't going to fuck up. So I wasn't really worried about it. He told me not to break the rules. He told me what the rules and the expectations were. So he's like, we're good. He goes on to tell Wino, he's like, I never put you in a position like that to where you had to whack me. We're good. The other thing that Slick said about Wino is, according to him, Wino never raised his hand for anybody to be pulled into the Mexican mafia. His standards were so high, they were out of his reach. And, I know a lot of NF members that were like that. They never raised their hand to pull anybody into the organization. They never, vouched for anybody. They never recommended anybody to be brought into the organization because they always understood that this individual, when you bring him in, you're responsible for him. If there's something about his history that you don't know, or, they end up pulling this individual, they end up making him, and he turns out to be a bust, or he starts fucking up from the rip, you're going to be held accountable for it. more than likely you're going to be the one that's going to end up taking him out, because that falls back on you. You're the one that raised your hand for him. But as far as Slick was saying, Wino had never recruited anybody. He educated a lot of individuals. You know, he laced them up, he indoctrinated them, he passed on a lot of the schooling that he had. But as far as making anybody, bringing anybody into the Mexican mafia, as far as he knew, Wino had never pulled anybody or never brought anybody in. But it's a trip though. When Slick said that, you know, I remember individuals that I ran into up in Pelican Bay that were the same way. They were very selective about who they recommended or anybody that they stood behind and said, you know what, I think this individual would make a good brother right here. They just kind of, you know, when it came to recruiting, they just didn't recommend nobody. You know, a lot of it, I think, had to do with, like I said, when you bring somebody in, you're held accountable. If you do it in haste, if you do it and you don't know their history, or, you know, if it's somebody that has an agenda, they're not really a true believer, somebody that soon as they get in a position where, you know, they get tested, some real adversity, they check in, that's going to fall back on you. And it looks bad. Even if you're not the one that's going to end up taking that individual out, it looks bad. You know, the last individual that you ended up raising your hand for, he ended up flipping and he got like 10 brothers indicted. So, you know, that ends up falling back on you. So Wino, he ends up giving Slick the speech, the whole speech about, you know, putting the organization first above anything and everything else in your life, above your family, above your kids, above everything else that you were loyal to before you made a commitment to, you know, the Mexican mafia. He made sure that Slick understood that, you know, the organization comes first. So one of the examples that Wino gave Slick, he's like, you know, if you're at the hospital and, you know, your wife, your girl, she's in labor, she's giving birth to your child, and you get a phone call from one of your brothers and they need you, you know, I'll do whatever I got to do, catch an Uber, get a ride from somebody else, but, you know, I'll leave to go handle business. You know, even though Wino wasn't recruiting Slick, it sounded to me like Wino was trying to instill the Mexican mafia belief system within him. Maybe he was grooming him up, preparing him for the future. Maybe he's seen that this guy's got the potential to be an Imero. And, you know, maybe in the future, somebody else is going to recruit him. He's got all the qualities, although I'm not going to be the one to raise my hand and bring him in. I see that, you know, he's got the potential to be a member in the future. So he's probably starting to lace him up and give him the game, since he was somebody that was close to him. These are the same kinds of things that I remember being told when I was making a commitment to the NF. I was told things that were similar. You know, putting the organization above family, your wife, your kids, all the things that you were loyal to before you made that commitment, that's off the top. But, you know, some of the examples I was given were like, you know, if you have a child and it's on his deathbed at the hospital, a similar example, and that child is dying and you get a phone call from a fellow familiano and they need you, whatever you got to do to get there, catch an Uber, leave, whatever you got to do to go handle business, that's what's expected of you. Those expectations are high. I know a lot of people that are not familiar with this lifestyle are going to say, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to ever abandon my child that's on his deathbed. But these are the things that are expected of you when you get involved with a criminal organization like this. One of the other things that I was asked is if I was willing to kill my own flesh and blood for the organization. And I understood what that meant, because more often than not, our biological families, our sisters, our little sisters, our brothers, moms, pops, a tío, a cousin, sometimes even fathers, they're the ones that we turn to first, because obviously family, they're the ones that we trust the most. But in the course of entrusting them to help us with whatever endeavor it might be, let's just say your little sister, she's holding drugs for the organization, or she's facilitating communication. She was somebody that used to run up to Pelican Bay and pull, you know, leadership out to you know, pass on filters, to facilitate communication. Say she's doing, you know, things like that for the organization, and she's she has knowledge about certain things. Maybe she catches a case that's unrelated to anything that she's doing for the organization, but she starts cooperating. Now she becomes a target. Obviously, at that point, she's not going to stick around. So now she's on the run. I might be the only one that knows where she's at because that's my little sister. I might be the only one that can slide up next to her and knock her down. Am I going to take my little sister out, or am I going to alert her and tell her, hey, look, they're looking for you. You need to get out of Dodge. They know you're cooperating. That's the ultimate test of loyalty right there. A lot of times individuals are put in situations like that where they have to take out somebody, a member of their family. You see it a lot. Wives are often put right in the line of fire because they're the ones that, they're the ones that we lay next to. They're the ones that we trust the most. So when we really need somebody to trust with information, your wife, a lot of the times, is the first one you're going to turn to. I always understood that that was a bad thing. And by doing that, I would be putting her in a bad situation. But it happens a lot. So my point is when I was asked, am I willing to kill my own flesh and blood? It's, I knew what it entailed. I knew that it was, because of situations like this right here. So that's what Wino was asking Slick. If you ever became a brother, would you be willing to turn on your own flesh and blood? Would you be willing to kill somebody, somebody related to you? But like I said, it happens a lot because they get pressed by law enforcement and they end up folding. Then it puts them in a precarious situation. Obviously, the organization is going to put somebody like that. They're going to put them on a green light list. So based off of everything that Slick explained, with respects to Wino, it sounded like Wino was the hardliner. So at around the same time when all this was happening, Slick had just caught wind that Wino's son had just been hit upstate. He heard that Wino's youngest son, little Wino, had just been hit somewhere in prison. I don't know what prison it was, but that he just got whacked somewhere. So Slick, he asked Wino, he's like, hey, who hit little Tommy? I caught wind that little Tommy got hit somewhere in state prison. Who's behind that? Slick was expecting Wino to get upset. When he mentioned it, he's waiting for Wino to throw somebody out there. And Wino just kind of looks at him and he smiles and he's like, I'm the one that did that. He's like, that was all me right there. I had little Tommy hit. He was stealing money from the Mexican mafia and he was using my name. And he's like, and that's not tolerated. I don't care who it is. Family, blood, it doesn't matter. When you steal from the M, you're stealing from me. So I'm the one that had him hit. You guys already know collecting Mexican mafia tax money is a serious offense. There's a lot of people that have been knocked down out there for collecting tax money. Wives, girlfriends, sureños just out there with a death wish, even other Mexican mafia members that are encroaching on another Mexican mafia's territory, going out there collecting tax money that they're not supposed to be collecting. A lot of people have been killed out there collecting tax money. So Wino was sticking to the script. And even though that was his son, Wino, he followed the law to a T. But when it comes to whacking one of your kids, somebody that's even related to you, it says a lot about, the level of your loyalty to the organization. Even though that's really what's expected of you, when you run across somebody that has really done it, that strikes fear in people because it lets you know that this individual right here, he's for real. He's for real about his commitment. He's somebody that was willing to have his own flesh and blood hit. Then he'll push that line on anybody else. That's somebody that's definitely rooted in their beliefs, but it's not unheard of. I remember Babo Sosa, he did the same thing to his brother. He had his own brother killed for using heroin and for collecting tax money. According to Slick, though, several other Mexican mafia members and sureños that knew Wino, that, even from his own hood, they warned Slick about him. Hey, don't get too close to this guy. Dude is he's a hardliner. He's dangerous. A lot of individuals have got caught up with him. Politics, dirty politics. Just be careful. If you're going to be fucking with him, be careful. Because Slick was another reputable individual. Even though he wasn't a Mexican mafia member, he's somebody that was always out there in the mix. He was always out there pushing the Mexican mafia's agenda, collecting money. So he was somebody that a lot of other Mexican mafia members, they liked him. A lot of Sureños from La Rana, from Wino's hood, they liked him. And they seen, that he got close to Wino at some point. They were basically just giving him a heads up. They were telling him, hey, if you're going to be working with him, just be on your toes. Just watch yourself. But like I said, although Wino wasn't really doing nothing special or nothing that was, these are the things that are expected of you. You're expected to kill your own flesh and blood, or you're expected to go after your family if, they violate the Mexican mafia, if they break a rule, or if they steal money. Those things are expected of you. But again, actually doing it, meeting somebody that's done it, it strikes a different kind of fear in somebody when they run across somebody like that, especially if they know, hey, this guy has whacked, his own family behind the commitment that he made to the Mexican mafia. Because although a lot of individuals say that they would, if they got put in that situation, they do this and they do that. I've dealt with situations like that where individuals knew that their family was in a quandary. They had a family member that were in our crosshairs. And although they said that they were on board with it, when it really came down to it, they picked their family over the organization. So it's a little different when you run into somebody that's actually done it. But according to Slick, he continued to work with Wino despite the warnings because, he liked Wino. They worked together. And again, Slick was like, the way I looked at it was, I'm not going to get myself caught up. I know what the dude expects. I've been working with him long enough to know what not to do. So I wasn't going to put myself in a position to get crossed up. So, I continued to fuck with him. And that's what he did. So he continues to work with them. He doesn't take heed to the warnings. He continues to work with them. He's out there on the streets. He's slinging dough for him. He's collecting tax money for him. He's enforcing his will out there on the streets. So sometime around 2003, 2004, right before Termite from Eastside Lowe's passed away, the same Termite that I've told you guys a couple of stories about already, Termite calls Slick and he's like, hey, bro, he's like, I need you to come over to my mom's house. I need to get at you about something, and it's important. He tells Slick to come over to his mom's pad. Slick had been there before. He knew his family. He knew his kids. So Slick goes over there. So Termite's mom, Connie, was somebody that Slick knew. Apparently, he knew her very well. He was somebody that she loved. Every time he would go over there to her house, she would cook him dinner. She embraced him like, another son. And, he had a lot of love for Termite's mom as well. So he goes over to his mom's pad, and Termite sits him down in the kitchen. He's like, bro, he's like, I need to talk to you about something. So Termite, he tells Slick, he's like, look, man, what I'm about to tell you is it's really not for your ears. I'm telling you this because you're my boy. We've got a lot of history together. We got a cool friendship. He goes, what I'm involved in though, and this technically isn't your business, but I'm telling you this because I'm looking out for you. And Slick, he says he could tell by Termite's demeanor that this is something serious. And for a brief minute, even though he hadn't done nothing wrong, he felt like, am I in trouble or something? So he's listening to Termite, and Termite tells him, check it out. So Termite tells Slick, he's like, so check it out. I know you and Wino are really tight. I know you've been working with them for a long time, and I know you got a lot of respect for Wino. He's like, bro, but listen, start separating yourself from him immediately. Termite explained that the East LA brothers were politicking against the Grajedas. He's like, they're politicking against them. There's a lot of shit going on within the organization, and I don't want you to get caught up in it. Termite goes on to explain that really this is directed at Guate, but it's been decided that all of them have to go because we don't want to take any chances of getting stabbed in the back by the other Grajedas. And, according to them, at least, blood was thicker than water. That's how they were looking at it. The Grajedas would stick together over the Mexican mafia. So a decision was made that all of them had to go. And they were in the process of, pushing them out, putting them on the hard candy list. For Slick, this is jaw-dropping news. He's like, the Grajedas, like, damn, the Grajedas were relevant. Like I told you guys, they were relevant within the Mexican mafia. You got families, whole families, brothers, 3, 4 brothers, sometimes brothers, uncles, cousins that are all made Mexican mafia members, big families. The Grajedas were one of them. Not only were, there were a couple of them, but they were very influential. And at one time they were powerful. They had a lot of respect, a lot of clout, out there in Southern California. We heard about them up in Pelican Bay. We knew who they were. Just like I tell you guys, they make a practice out of finding out who the NF members are, who the leadership is, who the NR members are, like the story I told you guys about, Sapo getting killed in High Desert. The Sureños, Mexican Mafia members, they make a habit out of knowing who's who, because obviously, somebody's made or somebody's tipped up, they're considered a threat. So, Slick, when he hears this, he's like, damn. He's like, that's it for Wino. But he doesn't just cut ties with Wino. He, Termite sits him down. He explains it to him. It's in the process. They're in the process of dropping the hammer on him, but it hasn't been done yet. This is a process that, obviously they needed to do it the right way. All of them are at different places. So I'm sure it was a coordinated effort. It's unfortunate that Cuate's indiscretions had an adverse effect on the rest of them, but that's how it goes. The M.A. knew how these guys moved, and obviously they weren't going to take any chances with them. They'd rather just, just get rid of all of them and problem solved. Slick had an immense amount of respect for Wino, so it was heartbreaking news to hear about it. This is somebody that he continued to work with, and I'm sure while he was working with them, it probably bothered him that, damn, this brother, they could whack him, or they just, what's going to happen to him? But I'm sure he had some loyalty to him as well. And I'm sure he probably wanted to tell him. Who knows? I doubt that. But, when you have loyalty towards somebody like that and they get put in a situation like that, it's an awkward situation. But at the same time, regardless of the fact that Slick had, respect, that kind of respect for Wino, he also understood Mexican Mafia politics, and he understood that it was probably in his best interest to steer clear of that whole situation. Not only that, but Termite was another brother that he had a lot of respect for as well. And he knew that Termite wasn't going to steer him in the wrong direction. Something was going on, and, he respected Termite. Over time, he started to create some distance between himself and Wino, but he still continued to work with him on occasion. Meanwhile, Wino himself, he had other troubles that were about to catch up with him. Like a lot of other Mexican Mafia members, Wino has spent the majority of his life incarcerated. From the youth authority, he was a YA baby, went to state prison, spent the majority of his life behind the walls. At one point when Wino was getting close to discharging his C number, he ended up landing in Corcoran. And after all these years of being on parole, he was finally close to discharging. The first time in his adult life, he was getting ready to step out and discharge, get off parole, be off paper. I remember when that happened with me. Matter of fact, I paroled from Corcoran as well in 2003. That's when I got rid of my first or second number. And that's when I got rid of my second number. But it was the first time in my adult life that I had discharged. And I'm not making this about me. I'm just telling you guys that I can relate, because I was on parole my entire adult life. But this was the first time that Wino was getting ready to parole, get off paper, get off parole. He wasn't going to have to go out there and deal with the parole officer, have to worry about random searches, none of that shit. I'm sure he was looking forward to it. So when his parole date came up, Slick actually drove Wino's wife, Kathy, up to Corcoran to pick him up. They drove up there, and Slick wanted to be there, when he stepped out. He wanted to be right there with Kathy when Wino walked out of those gates. And the reason why he was able to parole right there from Corcoran and walk out right there is because, when you discharge, you're not required to go through high control parole. When you're on high control parole, you're required to transfer to an institution that's closer to your parole region. But Wino was discharging. He was getting off paper, so he didn't have to go through the whole process of a parole officer coming to pick him up. He bypassed all that. Once you're free, you're off paper, you walk right out. And getting out of Corcoran, it's a lot different. They get you out early because they got to take you to the Amtrak station. There is no Greyhound in Corcoran, at least not when I paroled. So Slick and Wino's wife Kathy, they're sitting out front. They're waiting for Wino to come out, and they're sitting there. Slick's drinking a beer. He's waiting for his boy to come out, and an hour passes. And when you parole, they usually let you out early because, like I said, they'll try to, they want to run people to the Amtrak station. They want to get other people out because they know their families are out there in the parking lot waiting for them. So they run you out early in the morning. You go to R&R, they give you your money, they give you your dress outs. You're on a van, you're out of there. So they're sitting there. An hour goes by, hour and a half, 2 hours go by. Slick's starting to wonder now. He's like, man, what's going on? He's like, he should have been out by now. They're sitting there, and now Slick's starting to get worried. He's like, man, there's something going on. Wino would have been escorted out with other parolees, but I guess nobody else paroled that morning. That it was coincidence, but had there been other parolees paroling that morning, they would have seen them come out and they would have figured it out right there. But nobody else was paroling that morning but Wino. So, they're sitting there. He doesn't come out. And they got Wino hooked up so that he can step out in fashion. He's already got his parole clothes, but they got some bling for him to put on. They got, he's got a 3/4 sleeve button-down shirt. He's got some jeans. They got a fedora hat with a blue feather. They got some Jordans, some 13 Flints. He's going to step out in style. I'm bullshitting about the fedora and the shoes. They weren't even out at that point. But they got him hooked up. They got him hooked up. When he comes out, he's going to come out in style. So being that Slick had been in the joint himself, he's starting to wonder why he's not coming out at this point. He's like, something's going on. Something's happening. So Slick walks over there to the gate where you have an officer that's controlling that little Sally Port area right there. And he asks the officer, he's like, hey, can you check on such and such? He's supposed to parole this morning. It's at that point that officer goes, he makes a phone call, gets a hold of whoever he's got to get a hold of. And the officer comes back and he tells him, he's like, hey, Grajeda, he's like, he got transferred to the county jail, to the local county jail right there. Needless to say, now Slick and his wife, they're both tripping. Obviously, his wife, she's devastated. She's wanting to see him. They had plans. They were going to go to breakfast. And now they find out he's being held in the county jail. They don't have no idea why, what happened. They don't know anything at that point. The only thing that could have sent him to the county jail, obviously, is a new case or an indictment. It don't matter. He could have had 10, 15, 20 115s. Those are rule violation reports for those of you that don't know. Whenever you get in trouble in prison, fighting, you catch a possession of a deadly weapon, or you stab somebody and they just write you up, it's an administrative rules report. But that's only administrative. They can't keep you past your date, especially when you're discharging. So the only thing that can hold them is a new case or an indictment. On the other hand, worrying about getting hit with an indictment is something that every Mexican mafia member and every NF member has to come to grips with every time they parole. It's something that I used to worry about every time I came up for parole. I was always worried about it. Being involved in organized crime out there in the streets, being involved in criminal activity on that level, you never know when something from your past is going to catch up to you. You just never know. So you're sitting there on pins and needles like, man, am I going to fucking make it outside these gates? I don't know. Is something going to catch up with me? I used to be stressed the fuck out. Every time I was getting ready to parole, I wouldn't feel like I was going to make it out until I was actually on the other side of those gates. I was always expecting a Fed to pop up in R&R, or I was expecting them to notify me right there in R&R, like, hey, guess what? We're holding on to your gate money, your parole clothes. You ain't got to worry about them. We got a nice, fresh white jumpsuit, that we're going to use to transport you back to the county jail, whatever county jail that may be. But worrying about an indictment is something that comes with the territory of being a part of this lifestyle. Trust me, I used to worry about it every fucking time. Trust me on that. So anyways, after, at some point, I don't know if she got on her cell phone, if they went somewhere to a hotel, if they drove all the way back, to the house. But at some point, Kathy, she gets on the phone, she calls his parole officer, she calls the county jail, and she starts getting information. What's going on? Why didn't he make it home? So that's when they would find out what happened. So while Wino was still there in Corcoran, one of the camaradas, they got at him, and he had been complaining about issues that he was having with his cellie. He kept getting at Wino, telling him, look, man, we're in here I'm bumping heads with this dude. This dude don't want to listen. He's disrespectful. Whatever was happening in that cell, this guy was bumping. Two guys were bumping heads. And, he got at Wino a couple times about it. He's like, man, this dude keeps on disrespecting me. Or this dude, he doesn't want to listen. He doesn't want to follow the policies, whatever it was. So he gets at Wino 2-3 times, and he's complaining. So at some point, whether Wino just got tired of hearing about it, or he just decided to teach this dude a lesson. What Wino did was he ended up cutting a piece of metal out of his door. He cut a piece of metal out of his door. Classic Wino right here. He cuts a piece of metal out. He puts a handle on it, puts a nasty point on it, sharpens it up, gets it all nice and ready for him. And then he strikes up a kite. So he strikes up a kite, and he tells this dude, he gives him directives. He's like, look, you keep complaining about this dude. This dude is being disrespectful. He's like, we'll handle it then. So Wino sends him the filero, and he sends him, the directives. So Wino sends him the filero, and he sends him the directives, his kite. And he tells him, go ahead, whack him. I'm giving you a green light to go ahead and deal with him. Go ahead. So this is a situation that comes up a lot. A lot of the times, I've told you guys about it before. When you're living in a cell with another guy, you guys really have to be compatible. Sometimes you'll end up in the cell with a knucklehead that's just disrespectful, does stupid shit. Somebody that jokes around too much, or they're a slob in the cell. They got poor hygiene habits, or they just don't want to conform to the some of the rules both you agree to in the cell, whatever. It's hard to be compatible to find somebody that you can live with. That happens a lot. A lot of the times you'll get situations like that, and a cellie will get a green light to go ahead and take off on another cellie. Sometimes they'll do it. Sometimes they'll kill him. A lot of the times they'll both end up fighting when they're not supposed to. And in that situation, they'll end up both falling in the bad standings, and they'll end up moving. I've seen that happen up in the Bay many times. You're not supposed to fight with another norteño. I've seen sureños go at it over the stupidest shit. You took too many scoops of coffee, or you didn't wipe out the sink, or you didn't clean up the soap residue on the sink. Whatever. Situations happen. Next thing you know, cats are going to blows in the cell. So in this situation, whether this guy had an agenda from the gate, or whether Wino called his bluff, he gets the filero and Wino's kite. He takes them both, and he gives them to one of the COs. However it happened, he got one of the COs to come over to his cell. He gave him the filero, he gave him Wino's kite, and he told him, look, this came from this individual. He's telling me to kill this dude. I just want to go home. I don't want no problems. Me and this guy, we're not getting along. We need to be separated. Nonetheless, that gets Wino caught up. So initially, they end up sending Wino to the county jail out there in that county. However, it's a small county jail. They don't have the security to hold somebody like Wino, so they end up sending Wino back to Corcoran. They hold him in the SHU program. They give him a temporary number because his CDC number is not even active no more. So they're holding him in Corcoran. He's got no bail. And now he's basically sitting there ready to go to trial. So he's sitting there now, and they charge him with conspiracy to commit murder and possession of a stabbing instrument. So he ends up going to trial. Needless to say, it's a slam dunk case. You got an individual that handed over the filero. He handed over Wino's kite his one time, and this individual was willing to go in there and put the nail in the coffin. So Wino ends up getting convicted. He actually ends up picking up a life case behind this incident right here and never makes it home. Never makes it back out. He's still there to this day. Right now, on that case, on that incident. Bottom line, a wasted life, a lonely life, and on top of that, they put him on walk alone. That's a cold situation, especially for somebody like Wino. Obviously, the Mexican mafia was everything that he believed in. This is something that he gave his entire existence to, only to find out now that his supposed brothers in crime have turned their back on him and put him on the hard candy list. Wino, like I said, is still locked up to this day. He refuses to check in. He refuses to debrief, and he refuses to accept the fact that the Mexican mafia has turned on him. Slick, he still reaches out to him from time to time just to see how he's doing. And apparently the last time he reached out to Wino and asked him, hey, how you doing, brother? Wino's response was the same response it's always been. He simply says, I'm okay. Just still trying to master this game. Anyways, I know this story is a little different, but this is reality right here. This is somebody that lived their entire life, for this criminal organization, wallowing in this criminal cesspool, something that I always say, or something that I say a lot. Spent 30, 40, however many years, pushing this organization's agenda forward, only to get turned on in the end. And a lot of it wasn't even by his own doings. It was Cuate's indiscretions. So, and it just goes to show you too how fast something can change. You're waiting to get out. You're getting ready to parole. I'm sure he's just like anybody else is getting ready to parole. He's got all kinds of plans, all kinds of things in his mind that he's looking forward to. If he's got kids, moms and pops are still alive. He's gonna see everybody when he gets out, and I'm sure he counted it down all the way down to the day, to the minute, to the hour, only for something like this to happen. That's a reality. For you youngsters out there that think prison is cool, going to prison is cool, and you're in there playing that game like Wino did, look what ended up happening to him. He never came back. I bet you that one individual that gave that one time and that knife to the CO, I bet you he went home though. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story right here. I'm going to try to get you guys out an inner demon. Again, like I said, you guys have been asking for it, and I'm going to keep saying this right here. If there's anybody out there that want to continue sharing stories, go ahead and get at me through my email, boxerparadigm@gmail.com. You can remain anonymous. I will compensate you for your time and for just sharing a story with me. I got a lot of good stories on deck right now that we're getting ready to put out, but we're always looking for new blood. There's always, more stories, better stories out there. So if you guys got them, get at us. We need you guys to help us continue to put this message out there. And again, like I said, you guys will remain 100% anonymous and you will be compensated. With that being said, remember, don't forget about the raffle tomorrow night. We're going to be doing 3 pairs of Jordans. And hopefully, if we get enough people, we're going to also be doing that weight machine. If you guys want to get in the raffle with the weight machine, it's $5 a ticket, unlimited amount of tickets. The other thing that I didn't mention to you guys about the raffle is all the shoes that we're giving away in the raffle, they're 13.5s. However, if you win the raffle and you are a size 8 or a 10 or a 9 or whatever, or you're a female and you don't want those shoes and you want a pink pair of shoes instead, or a small pair of shoes for your kids, if you don't wear 13.5s, let us know when you win that, look, I'm size such and such, and we will get you whatever size you are. So keep that in mind as well. Anyways, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one. I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday night out there. Be safe. This your boy B, and I'm out.